Now you know you're following a real Ohio farm country deer guide when they got two busted up bumpers, the whole back window on the one side's out, and they're missing the mirror on the driver's side, and they're still driving like hell. I love it. I'm so excited to be here. We're here at our last experience hunt camp 2023 in Guernsey County, Ohio. We've got a little bit rough, a little bit raucous crew here with us this camp, but I feel like they're not going to miss too many times, so we'll see how it rolls out. But first night in, everybody's getting to know each other, we're having a great time, and we're working on getting dinner on the table. Dinner tonight is straight up venison heart. Now we've got whitetail, we've got axis deer, so the first heart we're going to clean up. Pretty good size, average whitetail heart. Now a lot of folks are going to want to take and shave, ooh, that's sharp, shave some of that fat off. And it's always around that crown, that crest of the heart, and there's nothing wrong with that to take it off. There's nothing wrong with it to leave it on. The only reason I take it off a lot of times is it's going to help you expose some of the bigger tops of the ventricles, the arteries, that I'm going to give you a look at here in a second around, because some of the cleanup that we're going to do, so you can see the two big side-by-side valves, and then in the back where all that tendon is, the pump on the inside. So it's no problem to tenderize these guys. It's no problem to pickle them whole, brine them and smoke them whole. What we're going to do tonight is stir fry. So we're going to help ourselves make them more tender by doing two things. So you see the side on here, or the vent on here, and the ventricle over here, and what I like to do is just open that straight up, and then you can see once you open it up, this side, you can get in, and all the little connective tissue is really easy to expose. Some of the silver skin, this knife is good and sharp, I mean it's a razor, and pull that stuff out really easily. So that's side one. Side two, we just flip it over, cut down through, open it up, and we're going to be able to do the same thing here. And again, why I took a lot of that fat around, you can see all that hard working artery and kind of what I call pump station mechanics right there on the top. That is going to be, if you're going to can it, if you're going to pickle it over time, you know, that would tender up. But in a sauteed or a stir-fried situation tonight, it's really easy to find that stuff and just remove it. And we're not losing a lot of meat here. It's mostly just that connective tissue. So we're open on one side, open on the other. Now what we're going to do, we've got that middle wall, and we're just going to slice right down through it. So now we've got two halves with that bigger piece in the middle, that center wall. And now that we're opened up, I'm going to take that center wall. You can see it as a big ridge. So if you're a hunter, you're down here in the bottoms, or you're up here on top of the ridge, we're going to take that center ridge right up. And we're definitely going to cook that. But now we've got this beautiful flat piece, pretty well trimmed up. Leave that flat on, that of fat that you can see there. And this ridge isn't as pronounced on this side, but it's going to slide right off as well. So now we've got four pieces, our two flat sides, our two, what I like to call middle halves of the ridges, and a little bit more of that connective tissue on the top we're going to lose. So if we didn't take off the fat, we can take all this, put that into our sausage grind pile or burger grind pile. But now that we've got these halves laid out and our centers, we could score them, and that is going to keep this hard working, you know, pumping muscle. That's going to make it flat, and being scored both sides is going to make it cook even more evenly. But for the stir fry piece tonight, we're just going to cut it into strips. I like a little bit shorter for the pan so that we can make sure that we get good caramelization all the way around, and it's going to eat tender because we've scored it. We're slicing it thin, and that's how we're going to get our venison heart started tonight. Slicing right through, making that heart slice down like butter. HuntChef.com experience hunts. We're going to get a couple of our hunters up here to test what they just saw and see if they can do the replication. Just peel a little bit of the fat.
Yep.
And this connective tissue around the top. Try and do the least amount that I think I need to, because you can always trim more, but the more you cut off and put in a grind pile, the less you're going to have for your heart dinner. We got all our venison heart, and we're going in with tons of HuntChef straight out of Pontchartrain, that Cajun and blackening flavor. You'll be amazed how great it pairs up in a stir fry with soy. And we're going to flip the stir fry game over a little bit tonight and use butter instead of a sesame oil or something like that. But we've got so much thin sliced heart here. It's going to take a ton of seasoning. Smoky Bayou. We're going to finish it up with some big sexy beast rub. All right. All seasoned up. Ready for the walk. We're going to stir fry, walk and roll. Wild flavor style, Mike. So we're doing some stir fried veggies to go along with our stir fried heart. But most of the sauce is going to be on the heart, so the veggies are just getting a couple of the HuntChef seasonings. So real damn deal. It says right on here fish and seafood rub, but it's awesome on just about anything. And we're backing that up, doubling down, building layers of wild flavor with the HuntChef party fowl as well. Great poultry flavor. Awesome on anything with wings, pork chops, veggies, and certainly great on potatoes. So, but doing the veggies in some batches, hot and fast, making sure all our hunters have some good green.
Get a roughage.
So we'll do 3 rounds of veggies and then probably 3 rounds of heart, and we'll be ready to eat. And we've got we forgot rice, so we made baked potatoes to go along with it tonight.
We'll suffer through it.
Suffering through. Oh, look at all that fawn, Mike.
That's going to be the best fat.
That's what I'm saying. Buddy. So if you guys just peek a little bit, you'll see the sauce that the blood and the seasonings pulling the moisture out of the meat, making in the bottom of the pan. You can kind of see that there, and that's where when we see that pulling up is where I like to add for this particular deal. That's what I like to add the soy, not a ton, but enough to complement the meat and the HuntChef seasonings. And I've tried to keep, the meat kind of pushed up to the sides because we've got that fire coming up. And it's tough to replicate, like in that home kitchen a lot of times because you've got, smoke going everywhere. But when you're outside with the gas fire and you get to that point and now you push everything back up to the sides again, and you can do this also like on that Blackstone, that flat top griddle, kind of have the meat out around and let that pool kind of be in the center. And you can see now, and you can hear, because this isn't, you know, Teflon, this is just steel in the pan. So I've got a metal, you can have a wooden spoon if you got something Teflon or you're worried about scratching your Blackstone. But in this pan, I'm scraping the bottom, getting all that goodness off there. So you want to kind of size your batches to the pan you're cooking in, because if you have too much, you're not going to get any sear, any brown on the meat if you put too much in. And it almost looks like chocolate sauce, right? Looks like almost like Hershey syrup, and that's kind of where I was going with it. Wanted to get to. Yeah, that doesn't suck. Okay, grab and growl. Here we go.
All right. Thank you for gathering us all here, strangers who are now friends. Thank you for this great experience. Pray that we are granted safe travel into the woods. Pray that we shoot straight and that we enjoy the bounty of this wonderful world that you've given us. Thank you for the friendships that we make. May this grow eternally in your name. We pray this in your son's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Oh, you're going to leave this for me?
Really, really good.
Awesome.
This is great.
Love it.
This is
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Glad to hear it.
This really is phenomenal.
Were you talking about the cookie or?
Nope.
I'm trying to give you a compliment. You're making it hard.
Hey gang, Bill from the Outdoor Lab. We're sitting here in beautiful Guernsey County where there's where the big deer are big. And we're on a HuntChef hunt process cook experience hunt, day 2. And we're sitting here in a blind along a tree edge here. We know we got a big one who's moseying around out here. We just got to catch him during daylight here. We got a little bit of a corn pile out here. We got some raw frozen scents. 30 plus peak estrus out, and so hopefully we can turn his head and get him up here. And if we do, we're going to put an arrow into him.
Year and a half of what I've come to call the HuntChef one-man deer breakdown, and it hits everybody from kids to folks that are homesteading kind of in suburban, urban areas. People are like, okay, I got 5 acres, if a deer comes on, I can kill it, and then I can process it, I can put it in my freezer. And then there's people that have hunted their whole lives, and they've always dropped it off at a processor, but the processor's gone out of business. They're feeling like they're not getting their deer back, they're not getting enough deer meat back. And people that have started hunting when they were kids, but college, kids, work, everything, and now they're getting back into it. They're like, what the hell did Uncle Jeff do, you know, with that deer? So this is for everybody that hunts on a regular basis and processes at home. It can be a little bit of rhetorical, I guess, but for me, usually when we start these, but it's so nice and toasty in here, it's almost always on tailgate, on a folding plastic table outside, picnic table, anywhere like that, you know, you can kind of get things started. My granddad always hated deer hair, and so I inherited that trait from him. But I try and get the hide ready to come off. And again, this is usually on its back, on a tailgate or a picnic table, something like that. So if you get under the skin and go, you get less hair flying. If you just start cutting through the hair sideways, it goes pretty much every damn where. But if you get under the skin I mean, this son of a bitch is sharp, Mike. This is how people. I always say it's a dull knife. It's gonna hurt somebody. This thing, you better be ready to tango when it goes. But if you go under the skin and up through, you're not cutting down through the hair. One small little way to keep a little bit of deer hair off of your meat is cutting through from the underside, the inside of the skin, is to help not have all that hair flying. It's the same thing here. So we're just coming up through to the center of the brisket, just trying to be under the skin. And there's some that you're not ever going to get away from hair-wise. Oh, so the other piece that I forgot to mention, and it fits exactly with where we're at and what we're doing this week, is more and more with EHD, chronic wasting disease, etc. You can't take spinal cord, brain, that type of stuff back across state lines. So if you're hunting out of state, and you know, you might get away with it once, you might get away with it 100 times, but sooner or later, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So opened up the two front shanks, ready to shuck down over those, and brought that right in to the pretty much the center of the brisket and the rib cage. And now coming back up here, and it's always interesting because field dressing, whether if it's a morning harvest, you know, you got lots of daylight a lot of times if you find a deer right away. If it's an evening harvest, you're pretty much working off a headlamp. Evening field dressing tends to be a little faster and messier than daytime, in my experience, just because, you know, it's late in the day, you've probably been hunting all day, you worked all day, whatever the case might be. And you can go fast, and the more experienced you are, obviously the faster you can go. But for me, and again, something I inherited from my granddad, he grew up was raised all through the Great Depression. The real one, the first one, not the one we're going through right now. So he didn't waste anything, and he took his time, and he got mad at my uncle Mark if he shot a deer anywhere but in the head, because he didn't want to waste any meat. He didn't want to waste the lungs, didn't want to waste the heart, didn't want to waste the liver. And it was a great education for me from that standpoint, you know, growing up to be a chef after that, you know, one, it plays good to a lot of people when you talk to them about, well, you know, we use the whole animal, we respect the whole animal. It's not just, you know, the finest cuts and the rest goes into hamburger and whatever, we'll have chili later. So when you can have that conversation with people that are thinking about getting into hunting, have that conversation with non-hunters, that, you know, you're really truly working to be able to make the absolute most of the harvest. Get all the way to the bottom of the shanks, and I'm still trying to get under the skin as much as possible. And Jeff, thanks for killing this deer one way or the other, by the way. Appreciate that. So that we can get together here tonight around it.
Every one of you can talk trash. It's the only deer in tape. That's all I'm gonna go with.
And that's what I'm saying. So, you know, it's an interesting situation, but all together we're working through it, and I'm just honestly and truly, no bullshit, excited to have one to work on here tonight. And you know, for the one-man deer breakdown piece, the skinning is almost always the longest part. So you can see I did put a little hole in the back of the hide right here, but you know, the tailbone is a continuation of that spine and each joint that goes all the way from the base of the head to the top of its butt.
I was gonna get a jacket made out of that.
Well, it's just a little hole.
Does anything change when the deer is cold? That hide doesn't come off anywhere near as easy.
So when initially they get cold, no. And once after they stay cold, I'm less worried about the hide coming off easy than I am about the quality of the meat. And to that point, right now back at our shop in PA, we've got a great buddy of ours. His doe harvest is still hanging, opened up like this, but hide on. Where are we at, Mike? 12 days?
At least every bit of 12 days.
But it'll be pushing 3 weeks till we
As long as
skin
it's
it.
cold, it's dry.
What's the
right?
temperature
Yep.
you keep it at?
So that fridge is about 37 degrees, and it's a walk-in cooler. You know, Lance, who just left, so he found us a 12 by 12 walk-in cooler out of an old school grocery store. We got it for 56 bucks. All we had to do was go down with the tools in the trailer, take it apart, and 60 years of dust and dirt and shit, and then load it on the trailer, take it back, put it together, and then I bought a $380 through the wall AC unit, and then $380 Cobalt unit. So for less than $1,000, we got a 12 by 12 walk-in cooler that's 10 feet ceiling inside, 2.5 inch black pipe across that this stuff hangs on, and just really a little bit of work.
What's the ideal time? How many days at that under those conditions?
So the ideal time really is your preference. Where I was getting to was that our goal for that deer is going to be about 1 month,
Really?
about 4 weeks, and that's with the whole hide on it.
With the hide.
And so again, I had my own butcher shop for a long time, and even prior to it, had dry aged a ton of beef, dry aged waterfowl, geese, ducks, and stuff. And there's a whole reason for the dry aging piece. You know, you've all seen, whether it's in person or on TV or movies, like the ducks and the chickens and stuff hanging in the Chinese restaurant windows, right? Well, it's getting more tender, you know, and that's, you can go back, especially England and Scotland, game birds, grouse, pheasants, they hung them, and they hung them whole with the guts in them, and let them get flavorful, more tender. Because as soon as that heart stops beating, everything starts going to shit, right? Everything's gonna start to basically break down, rot. And what we have as an advanced civilization really lost that palate for, let's call it full flavored meat. But like you guys just had those back straps and tenderloins for dinner, there wasn't a piece of that wasn't aged at least 2 weeks. Pretty good, right? No, this is the one-man deer breakdown, but if you help me go a little bit faster, Nick and then Tor.
Last week I
deer.
was here, but
5 guys. Oh,
We-
there we go. All right. You mind grabbing that hide?
I got hit on the road.
Save you a little work on that neck. Pull back to you a little bit there.
Yeah, he was the guy that. Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. He got 2 days there. He keeps going.
Yeah, we got to be careful because if we miss like 2 ounces of meat on this deer, our yield's gonna go to shit. So from here again, and you hanging it in the garage or the basement is great. We also use a tripod that I got from Cabela's. You want to grab that Sawzall? Go ahead. Right in that cut. Now we're going right through the bone. So, just getting through most of the meat. I mean, a big rutted up buck like this, you know, in that 300-pound range. Lay that blade right on there like that. Yep. When you guys kill the little deer you usually kill, it's not going to happen that easy and that fast. But it's just, I mean, you're using power tools. It's kind of cool, right? And it helps out a lot. We're ready for our shoulder mount of that big dominant buck. And from here, I almost always keep going once I'm down and go all the way up. So right here, as soon as it starts to bow up, that's where that neck roast. Better get that saw out one more time. And we got a little bit of carnage in there. Anybody mind getting their hands bloody? Set that stuff on the table. We're going to start with one end of the table, right clear onto one side, and we're going to walk all the cuts back. So neck roast off there. And so on a beef, everybody's either bought, cut, ground, whatever beef chuck, right? So beef chuck starts right here where we took that neck roast off and runs pretty much right to where the back side of these shoulder blades are. So this is your venison chuck, and we're going to show you that here in just a second. But once I get to this point and having it hanging like this, you can have it on a table, obviously. Leverage here, but right at the top of that cartilage. And we've got one front shoulder. So we've got our neck here, one shoulder, and the other thing that I like to share with folks, and that people share with me that they appreciate what this one-man deer breakdown part is, you can let the thing hang for 2 weeks. You can break it down right now. Maybe you don't have a walk-in cooler. Maybe this deer is actually bigger than 42 pounds, so you can't put it in a fridge. But you can split it here, you can split it here, and if you have a fridge you bought on Marketplace or something, take all the shelves out of it, take a broom handle and that Sawzall, cut it down to slide in there, and then put that here, and you can actually dry age it in a fridge. Broken down, doesn't have to be whole. You just got to kind of
So if
keep
you
an
don't
eye.
if you don't have a fridge and it's 30, 40 degrees for a month, you leave it for a month, hang it in the bar.
Whichever one you got.
Is it on? Yep.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah. So neck roast off, both the shoulders, and then that chuck. I mean, on this one it's really big, so you got to be careful. And on this one, we're just going to take the meat off the bone. But it's super easy to get that Sawzall. Once you make these cuts, put it between the ribs on both sides, and then you can take that chuck and all off if you wanted to hang that in that fridge as well. But right now, because there's a chunk of lung, and we're stopping there. These guys, they're the absolute most tender muscle on the entire deer, and there's only 2 of them, and they're small. In this case, they're really small. So I want to get these guys removed before I do anything else. I'm going to take this one out, and I'm going to show you or tell you one more thing. It attaches right here inside the because the ball joint in that femur is right here, so it's just in front of that. And some folks will grab these, and you'll see people on YouTube and Instagram, they'll grab them and pull them. You can do that, obviously, you've seen those people do it, but when they're the 2 most prized, smallest, and tender cuts on your entire harvest, I kind of like to manage them a little bit more. You'll also see folks that like to do the gutless method. So, and that's where they'll cut straight up the spine and start skinning one side out versus the other. And then where that flank steak I just took off, that once they have that down, they can feel where that back strap ends, they'll put their knife here and cut, and then they'll reach in and they'll start peeling this inside tenderloin out. And it works, and especially if you're deep in the backcountry, you're in the mountains, whether it's in Appalachia or the Rockies or upstate New York, the UP in Michigan, whatever the case might be, you can absolutely do that. Yeah, and sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. But a lot of times in whitetail country, you got a little more time to spend. These skinny ends go to the front of the deer. These ends are towards the back of the deer. On a beef, so I said right here is where your ribeye starts, and then where the last long rib bone is, from there up to this, you can feel this little knob right here. It's like the last short little rib bone situation right in front of the hip. So ribeye, New York strip, and again, once you get all those other cuts out of the way, it's so much easier to see. So we can take There we go. Pull those bones there. Right in here. And right where those rib bones meet the spine, we cut that off. And then you can peel the cap off. And you've got basically a standing rib roast, or cut them into individual double chops. Leave them whole, make yourself a crown roast. You can French the bones, leave the flat meat on, whatever you wanted to do. But that's a really neat way to just do a little bit more. You see that more and more on social media. And then if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see some great video recipes where we cook venison ribs. And we leave a lot of the fat on. And anybody ever rendered venison fat before? So it's just like your mom, your health teacher, somebody, your grandma used to tell you, you are what you eat, right? So if deer are eating a lot of ag, a lot of acorns, the meat's going to taste better. But if they're eating a lot of leafy, heavy leafy, woody browse, laurel leaves, then it's going to be more gamey. So like this big, thick fat cap that's on a lot of does, especially early and mid-season, that is one of the best things ever. Peel all that off, all this other fat that's on the table, instead of throwing it in the can, put it in a pouch. As you process, even if it takes a week, 2 weeks to cut the whole deer up, every time you get a little bit of that white fat, put it in a Ziploc bag, put it in a vacuum bag, put it in the fridge. It's great when you're looking to use the most of your harvest is all the bones. Anybody make venison bone broth, like you'd make chicken stock. So all the bones, once you're done processing, you just cut them up, put them on a cookie sheet or whatever, or you can put them on a grill. I like to roast them and just kind of get that charred flavor, and then put them in a pot, veggies, water, wine, beer, whatever you want, and then just simmer it. And it's like using chicken broth or chicken stock to just, but again, using all your deer. On the New York strip loins on a beef, which is these two right here on this deer, if you were to, because this is an easy little one, maybe we'll try and make it happen. Well, hang on there, Gertrude. So from here, again, if it was a beef or even a lamb, what you're going to have is so now what we would have here are the T-bone steaks, right? Kind of neat, something different. Meat cooked on the bone, everybody feels like it has more flavor. You could do that if you still had the tenderloin on the inside when you did that. Then you got your porterhouse steak. So it is, again, this is one of the reasons I like kind of working from the neck up, because you know your two single biggest pieces of meat wind up being the hams, and you can do whatever the heck you want from here. But going on either side of the spine, you want these boneless?
Do one of each if you want to show it on your film.
Perfect.
Whatever you want.
You don't have to use a Sawzall, but I like showing it off because it just makes everything so much easier. Throw that into your pile for your bones to roast. And everybody's different. We had a talk last night about, do you split the pelvic bone when you field dress or not? This one obviously wasn't. But when you got them hanging here, maybe you got a hand crank. Either way, being up and looking at these, even versus being down like this on a table, for me, is so much better. So there's really there's a bunch of pieces in here, but there's really 5 main muscle groups your top round, your inside round, your bottom round, your eye round, and your ball, I guess it would be 6, your ball and your top sirloin. And again, it really just follows a beef, a lamb, butcher chart. But see this white seam right here? And it kind of comes up to this little peak. So that's going to be the tip top of your bottom round. So bottom of the back leg. And then from here, here's that big tendon, right? So I like to come to the top of that, and you can do this however you want. But what I like to do is come to the top of that, and then you see this white seam here, you can follow it all the way down to the top of the kneecap. The good Lord gives you a nice road map right there, and I've tried to leave enough attached here that once we separate this isn't going to pull free and just go flap, and it's still going to hang on so that we don't have to chase it quite as much. So right at the top of that knee joint, so we just follow that line down. And yes, you split a couple different muscles, but that's okay. We're really just following the road map the good Lord gave us. And where that hard spot is right here, right above where we cut, you can actually see that little bit of that ball from the knee joint. You're gonna be right under it and meet that cut on the front side. And again, with this demo, I talk to so many like diverse groups of folks. People that do one deer a year and like, I don't remember what the hell I did last year. So any little piece that I can remember to help them remember year to year. And then now you can see this white line straight down till we meet the inside of the pelvic bone, and free it up to see for a little look. So as a guide, so there's that femur right inside here, and there's that white line, which really, if you put your knife deep enough, is going to follow just the back side of that edge of that femur bone. And right down that white line, do you hit this inside the pelvic? And then from here, again, you're up in the air, gravity's helping you. And the other thing I didn't share that I always do is that anytime you're cutting, I have blood on the back side of my hand. See how dry? No blood on the inside of my hand. No blood on the handle of the knife. Wet hand, dry hand. Keep all your digits intact. Stop, reset, whatever you got to do. And I know it's really hard when you're field dressing. You know, as a professional chef for all the years that I did it, I can't tell you how many young cooks, apprentices, experienced chefs that I had. Either I put stitches in or I took them to Med Express, ER, whatever, because their damn knife handle was wet and it slipped. But so, and you always want to get a handle and keep your non-knife hand away from the blade. And especially when you're cutting deer like this, and whether you're processing a pig, a turkey, anything else, gravity is your friend. So we've got a handle, and we're just pulling down, and we're barely letting that knife tip touch the meat, because we've got a good handle that's safe and out of the way of the blade, and we're letting gravity really do a lot of the work for us. So again, gravity, you can see, I mean, every time you make a little bit of a cut,
I'm worried now.
it's just falling. So once, and you can control how much you're cutting at a time. So you want to get a good handle. Once you get that ball joint separated, because every little bit, and then get a good handle. That's it. So you got a boneless hind leg ham. Super easy. You can do it boneless in chunks because it doesn't have to be on the bone, but having that bone marrow from the hind legs in with the braising and cooking process is a big part of what makes ossobuco so great. Or you can take this and throw it in your grind pile, or you can take this whole shank like this. Anybody ever have a whole braised lamb shank, like in a Greek restaurant or something? And they're just fall apart tender and frickin' delicious. So that's what this piece right here would be, whether it was front leg or hind leg or front leg. But if you wanted to have kind of a impressive venison ham for Christmas, Thanksgiving, etc., you just go ahead and pull all of the shank meat off. Obviously, don't waste it. Put it on. Put it in your grind pile. Put it in your stew meat pile. Probably better in your stew meat pile than your grind pile, because we just, when we were hunting at Brian's camp in Kentucky, you know how we had a bunch of hearts last night. I had a whole big mess of venison shank that we cooked down there, and I mean, it will just melt in your mouth, fall apart tender. So if you wanted a fancy sort of bone-in venison ham, you'd do it like this and clean up that femur bone a little bit. You can leave the pelvic bone on, or I probably should cut it off first.
How would you cook that?
Well, a couple different ways. One, soak it in my brine kit, so you know it's going to be juicy, and it's actually going to help with the tenderizing process quite a bit. The other is you can just rub it and throw it on the grill, the smoker, brown it, put it in the oven, whatever you like, or you can hang it like a lot of folks seem to do. In South America, it's really popular to nail it to like a cedar log or something like that. More bone to roast. You can get it, put a wire or a cable through here and hang that sucker and just let it kind of go low and slow over your fire. But either way, it'd be pretty impressive. You know, you're sitting at the head of the dinner table on Thanksgiving or Christmas or your birthday, 4th of July, whatever you want to do, and you just got your carving knife out and slicing off that roasted, smoked, brined venison ham, just like that. You got the, you know, again, I would scrape this all down, make it nice and pretty for the presentation, and yeah.
Your HuntChef cruise wiped out.